Welcome to The Startup. I'm Rebecca Jarvis. And we're joined by Rink, the CEO of AbTech Industries. It's great to have you with us, Glenn.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
I think your story is very interesting because you started out in the food industry. Walk me through how a guy from the food industry ends up in a technology-intensive industry like the one you're in now.
It's a great question. Interestingly enough, I did start in the restaurant business while I was in school. I was working in restaurants, but I wanted to do something bigger. And I came across a marketing opportunity with an agricultural company to work with the technology to help with crops, to grow crops more efficiently, better water usage and fertilizers and things of that nature. And during that time, I learned about polymer technology, which is the cornerstone of what I'm working with now. And there had been an oil spill that had taken place with canola oil. It was a spill that had taken place, and I was asked if our technology could help deal with that, and it couldn't. But at that particular time, I started looking at other technologies that could, and became intrigued because I found polymers that had the ability to absorb oil. And then shortly thereafter, I started looking at water and oil versus water and land. And without getting too detailed, I learned that we could create a product that could remove oil from water, active water situations. And I then went to my first oil spill in 1994, which was in Puerto Rico. And it was the 750,000 barrel spill. And I was able to go down there and test the product and determine that there's some real value to it. And at that particular point, I began to look at starting a company that could go after. Because if you ever watched an oil spill, including the BP, most of the cleanup methods are very antiquated.
They are. Why is that?
Oh, well, there's not a lot of motivation for private industry to bring change to that because the people that clean up those oil spills make their money based on time and material.
So they get paid more if they take longer with it.
That's correct.
Even if ultimately they have to pay out to the people who have suffered as a result.
Yeah, well, there's two sides. So the oil companies are not the ones actually cleaning up the spills. They have companies that are called oil spill response organizations, also known as OSROs. And OSROs are the responsible party who go out and clean it up. And then they bill either the oil company or the insurance company. So if it takes them 10 more hours to clean up a spill or 10 more weeks, the more time, the more hours. So there's no motivation to see improved technology.
When you think about who your customer is, it sounds like you're saying our customer is the insurance company or the oil company, and you would take the place of, the term you used was?
OSRO.
OSRO. You would take the place of these people who are currently cleaning up oil spills, and according to you, taking a lot longer than needs to happen because they make more money at it.
They do, and the motivation is not there. And so when we presented years back to one of the leading companies, they basically said, it's not something we're going to look at because we don't want to cut our billable hours.
So you thought your customer was the people
Exactly.
cleaning up. You realized that wasn't your customer.
Exactly correct.
And had to pivot.
And we did pivot towards pollution that's not running off of our streets every day, which is called non-point source pollution or stormwater runoff. And this same technology can be, this is it, this is a piece of it, it's called Smart Sponge. It comes in a popcorn form, but when we make it, it comes out warm and we can form it in any shape or size. So it can be made a block, a brick, it can go in a pipe, it can go in a drain, and it has tremendous ability to flow high volumes of water through it.
And what is it, 99.99% of the oil would be soaked up by this?
We can remove 99.99% of the oil, and treatment processes, we have various different types of treatment, but that is, we just did results very much in that range recently in the fracking industry.
In fracking,
yeah.
Where there can be issues with runoff.
Well, runoff and also the fracking water where they're drilling, there's water that flows back, and dealing with that flowback water, they have to treat it. For every barrel of oil or gasoline they get out of the ground, it creates at least 5 barrels of water that then has to be treated.
Let me see how it works.
It would be a pleasure. So all I'm going to do is really take some New York City water.
Okay.
And some used motor oil and diesel fuel. And I'm just going to add it to this, and hopefully the camera can get.
So you can see how the oil is sitting on top.
Yes, and I'll actually even shake it up.
You'll get the bead effect.
Yeah, very much so. So whether this is in a steel mill in China or in the United States, or if it's in a fracking operation, the key is now to clean the water, but if you can clean it well enough that you can actually reuse it again, then it has a real value, especially in places like China.
That's what people want. They want to make sure that you can reuse it again. And it's interesting you mentioned places like China.
Absolutely, because previously whenever we looked at those market segments, they were less motivated to clean the water for discharge. But when they became concerned about running out of water, water reuse, then the dynamics changed pretty quickly. So again, this is just a visual demonstration. It's not intended to be a technical demonstration. When we deploy the Smart Sponge, we don't deploy it in little demo tubes like this. This is strictly for the purposes of this.
Now let me ask you something as you're doing this. And I see the water's coming out clear on the other end. Did you take this show on the road? As you were selling the technology, you probably had to do this and bring this to congressional quarters and to insurance companies.
Absolutely, without a doubt, as well as the investment community, because the investment community was very important for us to be able to continue the development of the technology. And Congress, many members of Congress have seen this, as well as the insurance industry has seen it as well, and the oil companies. So, I mean, it's very unique in its capabilities, and what's been absorbed in the top here is permanently bonded. You cannot squeeze it back out.
So what do you do with that once the material is done?
It's a great question. We actually have the ability to either do two things. One, it can go to a waste energy facility and be burned as fuel. It has a very high BTU value, so it's a great fuel source. It can create energy. The other thing is, in the fracking industry, they're more interested in actually melting it back down and getting the fuel out and selling the fuel back to the actual industry. And the other thing that kind of surprised us was the green factor. Is, can fracking be greener? We're not a fracking company, we're a water treatment company, but if you're able to treat the water, get the last of the energy, good energy, harvest the last of the good energy out of the water, and be able to get it back, and not have to take that water off site, have trucks bringing in new water, taking old water out, your carbon footprint is smaller. So if there's ever something that could lean towards a greener fracking, to be able to get the energy and recycle it and make sure you're using everything to the nth degree, it has been also proposed to us as a value proposition that they think is very worthwhile.
That's great. Glenn Rink, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
AbTech Industries CEO.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.